Uh-oh.
Oh snap, that sounds familiar.
Sounds very familiar to me.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, this is another episode of GameStop with yours truly, Stop Capping, and Swift Climax.
Yo.
So, we're going to be talking about a very important video game, not just in my life, but probably a lot of people's lives that were 80s kids, especially maybe early 90s kids, getting into video games, especially co-op video games. And that game is no other than Double Dragon 2. Especially playing co-op with my brother, Swift Climax over here.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just gonna say that the original Double Dragon game, let's see, the original Double Dragon game came out 1987.
Oh.
1987, the arcade, and then what did you call it? So that was the year my brother was born, and then Double Dragon 2 came out a year later. So that's one that's one hell of development. What would you call it? Push. And the release date for the U.S. was December 22, 1989, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, it was North America was January 17th, 1990. So yeah, so even when you get the initial release, you always got to think about, hey, it's Japan. They get everything first, unless it's a Western made video game that that's different. But yeah, usually everything comes out Japan first, and will come to the states basically in months or a year. So, um, so believe it or not, um, a movie. This is one of your favorite movies, Swift. Um,
Oh.
one of the games that inspired um, Double Dragon was the movie The Warriors.
Oh. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did
It
not
makes a
know
lot of
that.
sense if you think about it. Like the way they're dressed, if you think about it, if you look at their costumes, they're basically the Warriors attire, but it's blue and red, except rather than their gang member colors and the Warrior symbol and all that stuff.
Mm. Yeah, I see the theme now.
Hmm.
Like that's wild that they took that idea and they ran with it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for me, um, Double Dragon 2 was such a inspiration to it was definitely an inspiration to keep on gaming because for me, a lot of the games that people remember that yeah you got to play Super Mario Brothers with two players. There were certain games back in the day where they were mostly focused on linear one player games, and then if they had those two player options, is basically the first player dies and the second player that has their remote, they play the same character or the Luigi based character, and it's their turn to see how far they can get, you know. And I believe that stuff like Double Dragon 2, it was the first game where you got the both brothers, um, you could play them at the same time, and this inspired a lot of games like the Avengers arcade game, Battletoads,
mm,
eventually Captain Commando, probably the biggest um, co-op arcade game of all time, arguably Turtles in Time, the X-Men beat 'em up game. One of my personal favorites of all time is definitely definitely top four, top three. It has to be the Alien versus Predator game. You get to play as the two
Oh wow.
Predators and the two Marines. Um, Golden Axe. I
Oh.
mean, modern day games. Dragon Crown. Dragon Crown Pro. Streets of Rage 4. That inspired Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage was the answer to Double Dragon. Um,
Mm.
you know, and I loved how it also inspired other games to, um, you know, basically join the genre, whether it's uh, comic book characters like Spider-Man, Maximum Carnage, arguably one of the top 10 beat 'em ups in the 90s. Like if Spider-Man, Maximum Carnage is not in your top 10 beat 'em up games in the 90s, I'm sorry, like your list is pretty bad. Um, and then you got a linear side-scrolling beat 'em up game, the Sub-Zero Mythologies, an amazing side-scrolling beat 'em up game. And you get experience. You could do fatalities on your opponent. And then we got then it games like Double Dragon. It evolved so much further. You got Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, The Bouncer, um, Final
Mm.
Fight. The Final Fight games. Um, man, uh, what you call it? Oh, Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Like even, man,
Oh.
it bled into Marvel Ultimate Alliance, X Men Legends 2. Um, yeah, there's so many games, and for those who are listening, um, whatever beat 'em up games. I mean, you can even include Dynasty Warriors in it too. I mean, Dynasty Warriors is it's a third person beat 'em up, and especially once you're able to get to the two player. Once it jumped into the two-player option, I think it was Dynasty Warriors 3. Was it Dynasty Warriors 2? And then that evolved to Samurai Warriors, and then Sengoku Basara, and then you got Warriors of Orochi. So these beat 'em up games keep going and going. Like it goes for days. Um, there's so many amazing games with this. So I want to hear from you, Jeff Swift.
Yeah.
What impact has Double Dragon got you from back in the day till now?
Well, first, I think just for the safety of the video, calling this GameStop. It's not affiliated with the stores GameStop. Don't sue us. We don't represent them. This is the stop of games. No, but we could work on that later. But back to Double Dragon. Wow, Double Dragon has had such a cultural impact from the moment it came out, and now we just see the influences. But I think that's why this needed to be done today to remind people where that influence came from.
Yeah, especially when they came out with the most recent Double Dragon game on PlayStation Network. Um, it was
Which one was that?
the one that we played.
Yeah, that
Um,
one. That was like PlayStation 3, right?
yeah, I think it was PlayStation 3.
Ah, man, it was a game where you could brutalize and beat women,
Yeah,
and no one
it was
asked any
a
questions.
Double Dragon Neon, and like, yeah, I mean there's been like fighting games based of Double Dragon that weren't really the best, but they still had that cultural influence of staying relevant. Like Double Dragon has stayed relevant. This game, the Double Dragon Neon, the reboot of the series came out
20 what?
2012. So it's 9/11
20.
2012.
That is like that's 10 years ago.
Hmm.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I mean we can even look up. I'll look up right now. if it's still relevant right now. So Nintendo Switch, it came out December 21st, 2020. So
Wait,
2 years ago for Nintendo Switch. So it got re-released for Nintendo Switch December 21st, 2020. So if you don't have this game in your library, Double Dragon Neon, you need to go get it right now. You need to go get it. Like after we talk about this game and everything. This podcast, this game talk. You need to go get this game because it's definitely a great callback to the game and the genre, especially the '80s neo wave music. Um, the people who created this game did a really good job. Jake Kaufman was the composer for Double Dragon Neon. He even sells um, the what do you call it, the soundtrack on his website. You can even listen to it on YouTube, ironically. But yeah, man, it's such a impactful game.
now I don't know why it's difficult to make Double Dragon work now. I think because people just beat these games too fast. There's not really like people want to like level up and get new moves now. Back then you had the Hair King kick, a couple of knees to the face,
Yeah, like
and
that
they were
super,
content.
yeah, that super knee strike,
Oh, super knee, yeah, yeah, the big knee, Muay Thai knee.
the Muay Thai knee.
And now, oh, now I don't know. Now you have to. Everyone needs a super gauge, and you need a team assist, and it has to be online, and it's a lot of high demand now. How would one make a more modern Double Dragon?
Well, I mean, like I said, again, I think they did a really good job with the game Double Dragon Neon. I hope they release another Double Dragon follow up in the future. I know it's been years, but I mean, again, this set up the catalyst for bringing back old school games. All right, so let's talk about these games right now. Right, so we got Streets of Rage 4. They came out not too long ago. It came out during the pandemic
Oh,
because I know because I got the collector's edition. And I beat the game also with Justin, my boy from high school. We beat the game the moment it came out, and I still received my collector's edition in the mail, and I still got it, regardless. And then they don't have a release date for Shredder's Revenge, so it's basically a reboot of their version of kind of like Turtles in Time. So they're coming out with that new beat 'em up Ninja Turtles game, and now you can play as Master Splinter and April O'Neil too. They're added into the game, and the
oh,
game looks exactly like a mixture of the arcade beat 'em up game and the Turtles in Time, and it is definitely, you can tell it's influenced from these older games that are beat 'em up games, the side scroller beat 'em up games that came back, and I definitely want to see. Um, I definitely want to see some of these games come back, whether it's some type of classical, um, remaster, kind of like what he did with Capcom beat 'em ups. Capcom beat 'em up, the beat 'em up bundle. So this game came out. Capcom beat 'em up came out 2018. So that was a while ago too, and that had a whole bunch of games like um, Captain Commando, the Final Fight series, King Arthur, um, Battle Circuit, Knights of the Round, What else? Um, Armored Warriors, Warriors of Fate. Yeah, these are all good. These are all good games. Um, but yeah, the culture, the culture of couch co-op felt a lot of people felt like the culture of couch co-op was dying off because a lot of games went to multiplayer. Um, it's not totally the worst thing in the world, but the fact that we could still get Warriors games and still get people to um, play together, whether it's local or multiplayer. It's a good thing. Um, yeah, I mean it's a really important thing to get out there about how this culture of couch co-op or co-op with your buddy, your siblings, like this is a really important thing for gaming because now especially with like socializing and all that stuff, you can only I guess you can only play with so many people online rather than sharing a personal connection with people that you actually are in your circle. Especially siblings or kids that play with their parents that are into video games. Uncles, all that stuff. So it's really cool to see that. Even like certain play dates. You have people that have play dates and they play video games. So it's a really awesome game. I missed the hurricane kicks, the knee strikes. I love the way you used to walk up to your opponent and start like kneeing them to the face and throw them over your head. And you know, we used to have so much fun, very fun memories of just kicking ass in this game. And then you had Double Dragon 3, which felt like more like it was a more um, intense game too. Super Double Dragon um, 4 was probably the greatest Double Dragon title that ever came out, and that came out on Super Nintendo. Um, you know, I mean, that could be another conversation for another time. But yeah, we're definitely talking about Double Dragon 2 and the importance of arcades, especially since it's like a really, it like it's a dying breed, and it's one of those things where you have arcades, still trying to hang in there and be relevant. Whether there's still a quarter, or some arcades are generous. They're like, hey, it's 10 cents. A lot of arcades now they're being converted into the same kind of like Dave and Buster's system, where it's like you have to get a prepaid card and use that as credits. Um, and it was just really important um, back in the day, whether you're going to a shopping mall or another you know place that trying to be familiar with, or even a spot that you hang out with your friends. For me and Swift, we always went down to Chinatown with our friends or by ourselves, or I took solo trips to Chinatown back in the day in New York City, and there was just arcades everywhere in New York growing up, and you know, I mean, Swift, what's the importance for you in terms of the arcade culture growing up?
You mean like right now or back then?
Well, we can talk about back then and back then and right now. Like for you growing up, you know, as a minor, like being aware of okay, this is a good question. When was the first time you were really aware of like the arcade culture as a kid, like outside of Street Fighter 2? Because that was like the probably the most common arcade game of all time. Like,
I mean, I might. Let me see. I mean, off the top of my head, I just want to say Neron's Pizza. That was when arcades, because at that time I was like, whatever, let's say five,
yeah,
maybe. I was
five,
five,
yeah, and that,
and we
eh,
went to the pizzeria, and there was an arcade.
yeah, that's true. That's true because it was once we got to move out of Harlem and start living in South Side in Queens, and then um, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The thing I give a lot of credits to good pizzerias back in the day in New York City were they had at least the most updated arcade games or something that was good enough to still play, like something that was still like in relevancy, you know what I mean? So, like, in let's say, for example, back when I was starting high school, the hottest game that came out that finally happened was the first crossover with X-Men versus Street Fighter. And then, then some games would have something like, I don't know, like some arcades would have still have the Lethal Enforcers arcade game. Like, it was like the old school shit 'em up game where they used realistic life, they use like the realistic like models or of people, like people they use like real life people for like the Mortal Kombat animation, and they just made believe that, they're about to shoot you or they're innocent, and then you had to shoot them. They're like and like they died in like the most cheesiest 80s 90s movie imaginable. uh, I'm pretty sure you remember that, right?
The Mortal Kombat.
So
Wait,
you
the,
remember
the
remember the game Lethal? So remember before like the first person shooter games in the arcade, and then they had before this is before Virtual Cop, like where the
no, and they try to make them look real, but they weren't
yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. They try to make they were using like real life modeled people, but they were just actors, and then they try to either they try to shoot you, and when you shoot them and kill them, they just faded away. Well, kind of like they were like posing. They're like like it was like so cheesy. Yeah,
yeah, that was
yeah.
terrible.
So yeah, like you had games that were still relevant like that back then compared to like whatever was the hardest arcade game at the time. And I remember too, like depending on what arcade games were out there, with like stuff like Double Dragon or whatever it was. I remember Nintendo, Sega. What they do try to do too was they try to do the best they can to get their cartridge systems out there for consumers to buy the games, so they can like scrap off the arcade games that were in the machines, because they're like, hey, we can make more money with people, buying $50 games than like hoping some person just pops in a quarter, whether they win or lose, right? So, um, that was pretty much the the thing that was going on. So that's how it was like kind of like the beginning of the end of like the battle between arcade systems and like console systems. Consoles, doing something that arcades couldn't do. You couldn't fit a huge arcade, even though there's arcade collectors now and people buy arcade systems. But back in the day, let's be real, like no 5-year-old kid was gonna get like 10 arcade systems in their homes unless like they hit the mega lottery or something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, gaming consoles were like the thing that changed the game in gaming for arcades. But um, what it could yeah, yeah. I mean, what else and like I guess pushed you? How about arcade systems now? Like, how do you feel about arcade systems now compared to you were a kid?
Yeah, you're not gonna like this, but I gotta go the economical route where arcades are expensive. They're you gotta repair them, which
Yep.
is also expensive. But the profit minimal. maybe zero, because everybody, like you mentioned, you could play everything on a PC. No one needs an arcade anymore. It's pretty much besides for the nostalgic feel, uh, there's really no reason to own like a huge arcade. I mean, unless it has like 10,000 games. But like the arcade stick, you got me, and we got that's cool because that connects to the TV and has all the games and the joystick. Shout out to arcade sticks out there. But the machine itself, just I can't justify it. I can't justify it right now. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I went into someone's house and they had it, super bonus points. But for me, can't do it. Can't do it.
Mm. Yeah, and also, regardless of how great Double Dragon 2 is, how much this is one of the this is one of the goats of gaming, co-op gaming. Um, what do we call it? This game also inspired probably the first crossover when they crossed over with the Battletoad games. And that was a huge deal back in the day because Battletoads were definitely one of the best, beat 'em up games of our generation too. And the fact that Billy, Jimmy Lee got to team up with Pimple, Rash, and what was it, Zit? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was a mind blowing experience. Like people talk about like how certain you have certain crossover events like back in the day, and I'm like nah man, like this back in the day, like this was like if you were, especially if you're a beat 'em up game junkie, you love playing all these beat 'em up games, or just for nostalgia, like this was like the crossover at the time, and it was such a rewarding but also like unforgiving experience because they really stepped up the difficulty with the game. And this was like before like they finally like what had like people like today like Ratchet and Clank teaming up with Jax or whatever, like in that one game that came out a while back, and people were talking about it's like, oh wow, that's cool, they finally did that. I was like, yeah, that's cool, they finally did that. But like Battletoads and Double Dragon, they were the ones that really pioneered that shit, and it was really important for you know to have that. Fun fact though, fun fact that Vanna White in what do you call it? Um, the what do you call it? The lady that basically changes all the letters for Wheel of Fortune. She was cat. They use a like her likeness in Double Dragon 2 as the newscaster um, in the game. Also, um, let's see. We also got. Oh, this was another funny one too. Um, what do we call it? Yeah, I remember. I remember they used Vanna White as a person in the movie. In the movie, yeah, and also, what was it? Motion capture. No. Oh yeah, they actually try to make a motion capture. What do you call it? Double Dragon game like the way Mortal Kombat was made, but due to the budget and character shots of the game, depending what it was, the sprites, um, it got scrapped due to budget and time. So we almost got a game like Double Dragon that actually had the same character actor sprites like Mortal Kombat characters.
What? Wait, so they Vienna White almost became a sprite? Is that what you said?
No, no, she was in the Double Dragon movie as the newscaster. Remember that Double Dragon movie that came out in the '90s?
We gotta talk about that movie. We gonna talk about that movie.
Yeah,
Are
we
we?
could talk. We could talk about it for a few minutes.
Oh, oh boy, oh boy. Hold on. I want to do something a little different. I don't know if we could pull it off because this is all real time happening. But we got our cousin. He's trying to get in the chat. You think we
Uh,
should we should we
no,
should
no,
cross examine him? No.
no, because it could totally screw up the podcast. I don't want him to say random something random, and then
I,
I don't think that he has to change his settings too. I haven't tested out his settings for the party chat, so
okay, because I was
because
gonna say it would be nice to get a
perspective.
it's a generation, it's a yes, perspective
I mean,
of
I know David would have been old enough to remember that movie, but he was like he was super young when that came out. The Andrew like Andrew was a kid when like the first Harry Potter movies came out. Like by that time, that Double Dragon movie was already buried. You know, like no one cared about that
exactly.
game.
You know,
I don't even know if he's seen the movie, but I mean, we can ask him later. But another fun fact, so you remember like the mini bosses in the game that were basically like the blonde hair muscle men?
uh, yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
So
They
the game developers used the likeness of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando in Predator character models. They thought like, hey, his presence is so like was so good as an actor and as an action star. They thought like, hey, if we had our characters beating up a guy that looks this jacked and like this look this big compared to Arnold, it gave the characters credibility of like overcoming the game, the adversaries of the game. It's like not only
oh,
that they were like martial arts masters and all that stuff, but they whooped someone that looked like Arnold, like multiple Arnold's asses. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like as Japanese developers, when they do animes and stuff like that, like they like to go big. I don't blame them. I love how they are really inspired by also Western culture and
mm,
but at the same time, I feel like they take a lot of Western culture and they make it better. If that makes sense. Like they take,
oh, yeah.
they kind of like take things from here and there about like our culture, and then they find a way to like, hey, I could make this look awesome. Um, you know, it's I don't know, man. It's like there. I'm trying to think of like other like other movies, other games that do the same thing. Like
Maybe
see,
maybe I should call this guy. I'll call him and I'll see what he thinks of Double Dragon to see the average consumer. Why the uneducated, the misguided. I don't think he'll know about it. What do you think? You think he'll know
I
about it?
don't think he's gonna know shit about it.
Oh man, that's not good. You know what then?
Yeah,
That's
he's not gonna know shit about it.
no, that's a sad. That's a sad. See, that's a sad. We need to bring some Double Dragon awareness back. Forget saving the Amazon forest. Okay, it's a done deal. Not
Yes.
gonna. We're gonna. They're gonna take it, and you're gonna just sit on your couch and watch YouTube.
But what's the crazy thing though? Like back in the day, you didn't have. I love about these games back in the day. Back in the day, you didn't have these. What you call it? You didn't have the internet. You didn't have like all these other crazy. You had some magazines, but like they weren't as big as like Game Pro. You could only have like so much Nintendo power back in the day or whatever it was. So like when you had to play a game, or the only way you could preview a game is either if you went to a friend's house, a cousin's house, you had a sibling that had a game and you got into it. You went to the arcade and you saw the arcade port there and you're like, oh man, do they have this in like my Sega port or my Nintendo port? I got to get this game somehow, or I got to find a way to come back and play this game. and and then the thing for consumers, like they literally had to set, you literally had to like look at the box, like the cover art, and then like the back of like the box cover art, and you see like the cover art, like maybe like screenshots, little screenshots of what the game might look like, and then like read the story and see what that's about. And for whatever reason, if you look at the cover of Double Dragon 2: The Revenge, this instantly sells you a, you know, like this action-packed action movie like game. And you know it definitely looks like, you know, where you have your protagonist just fighting their way out of hell, you know, just because, you know, they're taking, you know, they took your girl buddy away again, or you know, basically Billy's girlfriend Marion. The funny thing originally what they were gonna do was, I remember in the first game they kidnap her. In the second game they were supposed to kill her, and then you know you get the revenge. But you know, for some places like it didn't fly. Like, yeah, don't kill the character off like that or whatever. So instead they just you know, it was just like, hey, let's just rescue her. Um, but yeah.
Um, freaking, what you call it? So, I mean, like, I guess kind of to go back to the original thing, like, do you like, we didn't mention the game. What was it? Not, is it Dig Shovel Knight? Shovel Knight. Do you think if Double Dragon takes maybe something like out of Shovel Knight's like book, do you think we could have a new modern day Double Dragon?
You know, it'll be really. I'll be more interested to see if they were to bring back. So basically, if you see the game, like the way they brought back the new Ninja Turtles game, and is basically like a spoof of the new Ninja Turtles game, like the Turtles in Time. You know, it looks like a continuation, kind of like Turtles in Time, and like, you know, like the older, like, you know, Teenage Mutant Turtles, the arcade game. It looks like a reboot and tribute to that. So if we saw basically a more pixel like, you know, basically like their retro pixel sprites in the, like in a new video game, where they kind of have like their old school sprites, like, you know, they look like this, like the small beefed up people that are ready to kick ass, and you know, kind of like the exaggerated, like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger character, you know, just like it's basically there were sprites, but like all remastered or whatever, like that. And you know, you got the same crazy moves like the knee attack, the hurricane kick, you know, a better, you know, better grappling or whatever, kind of like that other beat 'em up game, River City Heroes, or you know what, you know, that game series. I could totally see them doing that, because you know we already have Dragon, you know, Double Dragon Neon, and like, you know, if they're not gonna make a sequel following, you know, if they're not gonna follow that, they might as well do whatever they're doing with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you know, that's it. I think the only game that, you know, the only game that got away with it, because you know they upgraded everything, because you know Double Dragon Neon, you're able to upgrade your moves, you get to have finisher moves, you know, you get, you know, all these abilities, but you know, that was a very common thing in Double Dragon. You know, even Double Dragon 4, you could do a charge up thing where you beef up your character, you do double damage, or if you beef up, if you charge up your charge bar, and you go, if you charge it up to like 75%, and then you let go of it, then you do like the hurricane kick across the, you know, across the entire stage, and you know it causes just massive amount of damage. um you know, it's a I could totally see them maybe doing a mix of that. And like the only game, like I said, that got away with like really upgrading their abilities, and you know, you know, taking it to the next step too, other than Double Dragon Neon, was Streets of Rage 4. Like Streets of Rage 4 is a beast of a co-op game, and I'm actually happy that they kept everything in continuity in terms of like, yo, this is like the fourth title. The character is definitely aged. They're still living in like the corrupt city. There's still, there's still gangs. There's all these gangs that are trying to like basically destroy the city. So you get you go through new antagonists, old antagonists. Like if you follow, especially if you follow the lore from the first game, you'll be very happy to see some returning characters, some new characters that are connected to them, and Double Dragon definitely needs a lot of that to still be considered like one of the kings, one of the pillars of co-op beat 'em up games because it is. For me, it's always going to be number one in my book because it was, Double Dragon was like the real first beat 'em up game, that didn't use, weapons and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because even inspired. It was one of the first games where you picked up weapons and you get to use weapons against your adversaries when they're trying to use weapons on you. So it was like, it was that and Final Fight. Final Fight was probably more remembered because it was more, animated. Also it was, made by the juggernaut Capcom. And like they had more memorable characters, but people who really gamed and who weren't really casual fans of co-op games or beat 'em up games, they knew that Jimmy Lee and Billy Lee were the shit. And I felt like the game was kind of like those old school martial art movies, like back when like Van Damme got his start in martial arts, martial art movies. Who else was a big person in martial art movies? Jess Speakman, The Perfect Weapon. It was like before Seagal really took the scene too, and in his martial art movies, Steven Seagal. Brandon Lee, the late Brandon Lee. He did some films with Dolph Lundgren. And he did some stuff. He did a movie called Rapid Fire too, a movie called Rapid Fire. So he did all this. Brandon Lee definitely contributed to film, and he contributed to movies that look like beat 'em up games. Back in the day before his unfortunate demise, while filming The Crow, and even something like The Crow could be inspired to be a beat 'em up movie, a video game and all that stuff. Just jacking people up from the Gaines that killed his Eric Draven character and his late fiance Shelley. So there's so much recipe in really good action movies that could be really good beat 'em up games. Even something like John Wick, like that's a more modern day thing. Like I would love to, like there was a beat 'em up game called back in the day. I don't know if you remember it, but it was like around the PlayStation era and all that stuff. I think mostly PlayStation 2 era. It was the Dead to Rights games, and they even came out with like some PSP titles. It was Dead to Rights, and those games were good. And I remember. You had your main character. He used to like sick his dog on you. You have the charge up like cool down ability where his dog could take down any enemy, especially if they had a weapon. If he took down an enemy that had a weapon, you go up there, pick up the guy's weapon after you took him down. It was a hell of a game series, and that's actually one series that I do want to come back. I mean, it's a dead series and it hasn't come back. Another game I saw a website I don't know if it's from Eurogamer or what, or another website. I need to look for it. But apparently, they said that they want to bring back PlayStation One games with trophies, and apparently they were teasing that one of the original PlayStation games is not a beat 'em up game, but it's a good third-person solo game. It's the Siphon Filter, the first Siphon Filter game.
Oh, that game is legendary.
That game was a legit game. Like even though he didn't do any kung fu or anything like that, it was definitely action movie driven. Like we're talking about like old school like 90s like shoot everything that moves type of thing. If there was a game that inspired something similar to like Arnold Schwarzenegger's True Lies movie or Commando. That game itself might as well just been called Guns Blazing because that's all you did. You were picking up bulletproof vests. You were picking up all these good weapons. You were picking up weapons that shot through bulletproof vests. Like the game was insane. The game was insane. So I'm gonna wrap here in a couple of minutes, but the moral of the story is a lot of co-op games today, especially beat 'em up games, wouldn't be around if one of these because of one of these great games, one of the greatest pillars of video game history, Double Dragon 2: The Revenge, was not around. So, you got Streets of Rage, Final Fight, was another, Turtles in Time, and then like the Double Dragon series. And I know there's more beat 'em up games out there. You can even throw in The Simpsons. Simpsons is one of those great arcade, legendary games. But the Double Dragon 2 came out before that. Another honorable mention, like I said, was the X-Men arcade game where you get to pick as, you get to play as Dazzler, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Wolverine. Man, it was such a good game, and that game was based off the X-Men's Kitty Pryde. It was based off that old pilot television series that really never picked up. But yeah. But so you got any final thoughts before we stop?
Yes. Just can you tell me, because I'm trying to just a very brief rundown on the bad guys in Double Dragon again, because I completely just for the
So
Shadow
you got the Shadow Master, Shadow Lord. Then you got the really big. So like how Hugo is in what do you call it, Final Fight. So you got like their big version of like Hugo named like Abobo, and he was like he basically looked like a super big Asian dude with a bad like he looked like he had like the Asian chef mustache. And he was like super. He looked like he was on steroids compared to like those Arnold Schwarzenegger like, enemies. Like those like that guy Bobo. The Bobos were bigger than like those little Arnold characters. And then you had then you had your typical thugs, that had like knives or bats.
Yeah, of course.
Some ninjas here and there. Stuff like that. But other than that, it was classic platforming.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Of course, the platforming is is something. But all right, all right. So yeah, just so I know and just so everybody knows what they're going up against. There it is, thugs.
Basically, thugs. Also, the game was. I know. Also, the game was also inspired by the Jean Claude Van Damme movie Cyborg. because it was considered like a post-apocalyptic and setting. I mean, if you look at the damn cover art, it looked like hooligans or friggin' enemies that Jean-Claude Van Damme would fight in Cyborg. And ironically, Jimmy and Billy Lee, they look like what would you call it? They look like both Jean-Claude Van Damme in the I forgot the movie with the brothers when they were twins. Um, let me look it up real quick. Um,
This is what sold
JVC.
video games back then, huh? This is what sold it.
Yo,
Celebrities.
I think it was Double Impact. Yeah, yeah, it was Double Impact. Jean-Claude Van Damme is playing Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah, two twin brothers torn apart by violence on a mission of revenge. One packs a punch, one packs a piece. Together, they'll deliver double impact. Feel the impact. It's so bad. Oh god. With that being said, yo, we're gonna film. I'm definitely gonna follow up another game talk soon. What do you think should be the next title?
Well, I was actually thinking about that as we were talking about Double Dragon. I was thinking like, what did we have one planned out for this? And um, I really, let me see. We talked about virtual fire. I mean, we're talking about. I mean, we're staying back in time because I was thinking of. Well, no, no. I know you talked about Neo, but that's more recent. So I don't know if we're doing something recent, we're doing something back from the 80s.
I mean, I think we could do Neo One.
Okay, okay. I mean, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, if we're talking about Neo One, we could talk about Neo. I'd be down for
That
Neo.
sounds
And then if something else pops up,
mm,
as a contender, I'll let you know ahead of time. And I definitely, yeah. See, that's another thing too. I definitely want to catch up with Drew Breezy because I need to fix his settings because I definitely want him in the game talk for the Tomb Raider reboot series since now it got sold off by Square Enix. And remember when he came by for that holiday season when we hung out, 2019 pre-COVID. He was talking about it's like, oh yeah, I platinumed that game and I platinumed the other game, the second game too. And then right now I'm still got to finish off the third game, and that Tomb Raider series was just the shit. Like it was so good. Like I love how you had the experience. You could upgrade the weapons. You could revisit, you know, basically areas that you visited. You had the fast travel. You could do all these side quests. It was just a great way to represent her character, and it's crazy. Even though apparently they said with all the sales with all the franchises with Lara Croft, they said something about like how it sold like 88 million units, and then for what
mm,
overall, and for whatever reason, like her IP got sold with the other IPs for $300 million, and people were arguing, well, it should have been worth more and all that stuff. And I'm like, you know what, people, like, if anyone's gonna know how much is whatever it's worth, it's really the business people, because at the end of the day, the business people that dealt with the IPs and all that stuff, they know the numbers, they work the numbers, and at the end of the day, they make the final decision of what works or what doesn't work. You can't tell me that business people are not going to go over the numbers and, you know, botch this. You know what I mean? So, with that being
mm.
said, just stop capping and keep on gaming. Peace.